Hello, everybody. This is episode 13? 13 of Scientology Chat. I'm guessing last time... I haven't been here for the past, two?
Just the last one, I think. You've missed 2 episodes, but they
Oh,
were like 3 weeks apart.
okay. Well, you told them about the thing?
The interview or
No.
which thing?
The...
Oh, yes, I did say that it was on its way,
Okay.
but yeah. Big announcement. I told you that one of our viewers sent us an e-meter. They sent me the tracking number, and the e-meter will be here on Monday, which means that by next week's episode, we will be able to talk more about it.
I'm so excited to see how that works.
Yeah, it's gonna be exciting. And I thought it was just going to be an old and quite used machine, but I found out today when I was looking through to find like an owner's manual, because like I said, I've only ever used the Mark 8 e-meter, and the one that I'm receiving is a Mark 7. I was looking on Amazon and looking around to find like an owner's manual to learn how to use it. The church doesn't sell those anymore. You can only get the one for the Mark 8. Um, but it turns out that this is virtually brand new. It's got the case, the cans are in their original plastic wrap, it's got an owner's manual, the power cords are in the original golden era boxes. Like, this thing has never been opened or used before. I can't wait to see it. And then today we're gonna talk mostly. There's a couple of things I wanted to address, and the first one is that in the one of our recent episodes, I don't think it was the last one. I think it was the one before where I talked about people being reported in Scientology. Um, every once in a while, I do get emails of people telling me that I am wrong about something, and I got 2 emails talking to me about how I was wrong about people using write-ups in Scientology for things unrelated to Scientology, which was what I had said. And I wanted to set the record straight on that because if people are doing that, they are breaking the rules. And I'm going to tell you why,
Uh-oh.
because I am not wrong. The first, so I'm going to read you guys a passage here.
God damn it.
Again,
He's pulling out his books again.
yep, this time we're going back into Introduction to Scientology Ethics, page 35, where we're going to talk about. So, when you write somebody up, you write them up for what are called overts or withholds, which you can kind of guess what those mean. Reporting someone for an overt means reporting them for the actual act of something, where a withhold is them withholding the information of telling you about it. It's basically like the commission of a crime versus, obstructing justice in normal legal terms. So I'm going to read you the actual definition of an overt because that it relates to what we talked about of people like the example that was given was somebody who had reported a fellow Scientologist for using a gay couple in an ad for supplements.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So this is the definition of an overt in Scientology. An overt act is not just injuring someone or something. An overt act is an act of omission or commission which does the least good for the least number of dynamics or the most harm to the greatest number of dynamics. A harmful act or a transgression against the moral code of a group is called an overt act or an overt. When a person does something that is contrary to the moral code he has agreed to, or when he omits to do something that he should have done per that moral code, he has committed an overt act. An overt act violates what was agreed upon. Now, it's very, very specific here that an overt withhold is the same, follows the same basic definition, except you're withholding information for doing such a thing. I can read you I'll read the definition of a withhold after we discuss this. So, you can only report somebody for an overt if they are breaking a moral code. And now I'm going to read you from Scientology 0 to 8, the Book of Basics.
Oh boy.
Now this comes from That book, page 392. Scientology is itself the microcosm of a civilization. It contains two moral codes. One is the moral code of practice, which is the auditor's code, which I have already discussed before. Just tells you what you can and can't do, how to conduct yourself while auditing someone. The other is the code of a Scientologist, which I read to you in full in the 2 episodes ago. It also contains an ethical code, and that is the code of honor, but that's more military kind of thing. You can definitely tell that L. Ron Hubbard pulled his stuff for the code of honor from the military. I mean, number 1 is never desert a comrade in need, in danger, or in trouble. Number 2, never withdraw allegiance once granted. 3, never desert a group to which you owe your support, etc., etc.
What's the thing called where the Japanese people would like cut open their stomachs to?
I think that's the code of a warrior or something.
Oh, no, there's a word for it. All right, never mind.
Yeah, something I can't remember, but yeah. Yeah. I already read the Code of a Scientologist, but I wanted to read it. I'm going to read it again because if you don't listen to the other episodes, I want this to have all the information here very clear. This is the moral code of Scientology. This and this alone, other than the auditor's code, which only pertains to the practice of auditing. Number 1, as a Scientologist, I pledge myself to the code of Scientology for the good of all. Number 1, to keep Scientologists, the public, and the press accurately informed concerning Scientology, the world of mental health, and society. 2, to use the best I know of Scientology to the best of my ability to help my friends, family, groups, and the world. 3, to refuse to accept for processing and to refuse to accept money from any pre-clear or group I feel I cannot honestly help. 4, to decry and do all I can to abolish any and all abuses against life and mankind. 5, to expose and help abolish any and all physically damaging practices in the field of mental health. 6, to help clean up and keep clean the field of mental health. 7, to bring about an atmosphere of safety and security in the field of mental health by eradicating its abuses and brutality. 8, to support true humanitarian endeavors in the fields of human rights. 9, to embrace the policy of equal justice for all, all.
Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah, 10, to work for freedom of speech in the world. 11, to actively decry the suppression of knowledge, wisdom, philosophy, or data which would help mankind. 12, to support the freedom of religion. 13, to help Scientology orgs and groups ally themselves with public groups. 14, to teach Scientology at a level it can be understood and used by the recipients. 15, to stress the freedom to use Scientology as a philosophy in all its applications and variations in the humanities. 16, to insist upon standard and unvaried Scientology as an applied activity in ethics, processing, and administration in Scientology organizations. 17, to take my share of responsibility for the impact of Scientology upon the world. 18, to increase the numbers and strength of Scientology over the world. 19, to set an example of the effectiveness and wisdom of Scientology. And 20, to make this world a saner, better place. That is the only moral code in Scientology that has anything to do with what an overt would be. So if you are reporting somebody for an overt, it would be because they committed an act that violates their agreed upon moral code. What I just read you is Scientology's moral code, and there's nothing in it that can be used to write you up for an overt for anything to do with what you use in an ad in your business, unless it's something like that violates those specific principles. And so that's what I mean. If somebody is doing that and an OT board or whoever is reviewing a write-up and lets that happen when it doesn't violate the ethical or the moral code of the Church of Scientology, is breaking the rules. Now, I'll just to be clear, so I don't leave anything misunderstood here, I will also read you very briefly the definition of a withhold, just so you know what it means in Scientology terms.
Are you going back to the first book now?
Yep. Withhold, an unspoken, unannounced transgression against a moral code by which the person is bound is called a withhold. A withhold is an overt act that a person committed that he or she is not talking about. It is something that a person believes that if revealed will endanger his self-preservation. Any withhold comes after an overt. So those two things, an overt and a withhold, are what you would do a report of or a write-up of for somebody in the Church of Scientology. So if you hear a story of somebody saying that they were writing people up for this, that, or the other, and those reports don't, in your opinion, violate the ethical code or moral code that I just read you, or the auditor's code that I have read you before, then if that really happened, whoever did it and the person who let it happen were breaking the rules of the Church of Scientology. Which I'm not saying that doesn't happen. Like I've said before, I don't hate the church and I don't want to see it destroyed, but I would like to see it be better. But what I just read you is exactly how write-ups work in the church. So, and I give those two books, feel free to look it up with the page numbers. You can see that I read it all straight from the source. And there is nothing in Scientology that matters more than source material. The next thing I wanted to talk about really quick is a quick little update on the me teaching courses at the jail. I still haven't received word back yet from the official Church of Scientology to find out what's going to happen with being able to resume some courses and whatnot. But if that doesn't happen and everything doesn't work out with being able to go back and all that, I spoke to the programs director at my local jail, and part of what I now need to do to be able to go back to teaching those classes at the jail and get that project back together is I had to form a legal church in the state, and I have to have some form of media so that I can show them what I believe, and I have to be able to I have to have paperwork that shows that I am a minister with said church and all that, which has been an arduous task.
Ooh, could I be a minister?
Well, I don't even know exactly how that part works yet, so once I find out how to even go about that paperwork.
I mean, I don't want any responsibilities or anything.
Yeah. So I had to do that. I had to file religious trademarks for a logo. I had to create a website and all this excitement. I'm not going to actually publish any of it to be public until I find out for sure what is going to happen with myself and the IAS. They were going to let me do everything before because of my certificates that I have from the official Church of Scientology, but now that I'm not a member, I don't know what's going to happen with that. So that's kind of what's been going on there. If anybody has any advice on that, I would appreciate it. I had to learn a great deal about fair use as well, and what is and isn't legally owned to avoid any possible legal entanglements. The biggest thing that I was told while I was doing this process is that there are four aspects of fair use, and the fourth one is the most important one in the American legal system. And if you use anything that's copyrighted by somebody else or trademarked by somebody else, the fourth aspect of fair use is the economic impact by the person who is using the materials. So just like the podcast, which I guess is a good thing a good thing that's been going on this whole time, and that will happen if I have to officially put everything out there with this church that I have to form, is I constantly tell you to read materials and to get it from Bridge or one of their affiliates, or different methods to get it. So if anything, if I have to form this church, that I feel like that covers my bases, that I will have if anything, the existence of my work using their works makes it more likely for people to buy their stuff. Basically, is what it all boils down to. Um, so I'll keep you posted on how all of that goes. I don't. I'm still waiting to hear back. I don't know if they're discussing amongst themselves or what's actually happening within the communications on their end, but I will definitely let you know once I hear back. Yeah, that's gonna be one way or the other. I really, really, really want to be able to do that. That's been like my passion project for quite a while, almost 2 years of trying to put that together. So one way or the other, I'm going to get it done.
Well, didn't you teach at the jail before?
Yeah, for a little while I did. I was.
You didn't need a.
They were accepting my certificate, like that certificate. They were accepting, but now that I'm not a member anymore.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'll keep you posted on that. There was something else that I was going to talk about, and now I can't remember what it was.
Oh boy.
It was a question. I'll have to pull it up again. I had it, and now I've lost it. Ooh. Sorry, folks. Give me just a second here.
Getting in the emails.
Oh, yes, that's right. Mental health. So I'm just going to read this portion of a question here. This whole question here. I did not ask the person for permission before, so I'm not going to say their name, but they did ask the question. So, I'm a licensed mental health counselor, and this is why I'm asking. I agree with a lot of criticism against psychiatric and big pharma in general, but I've also heard Scientology is against psychology and counseling outside their auditing, so I wanted to hear your perspective. I also practice meditation, and I've practiced yoga in the past. I've heard Scientology is against any sort of spiritual practice that isn't directly from Scientology. There's so much misinformation, though, that it's hard to know what to believe. I completely agree with you on that. So the first thing, Scientology as a whole doesn't consider there to be a difference between psychiatry and psychology. They sort of intermingle when Scientology is talking about them. And to basically put it bluntly, it's if you are auditing somebody, you cannot mix auditing with any other form of mental health therapy. That's not to say that any kind of that Scientology doesn't think there are other kinds of mental health therapies that might work, maybe even get you up to a release. But we use auditing because we believe that it's the best tool and that release is good, but great is the goal, but clear is the goal. And so it's hard to know, like it says in all of the guides for Dianetics that the only obstacle in Dianetics working is a lack of effort either on the part of the auditor or the pre-clear. And so there isn't really a reason, at least in the theology or the mindset of a Dianetic practitioner or a Scientologist, for why you wouldn't use Dianetics. And that's what a lot of the other later Dianetics books are about, is how to break through a hard case. And there are a bunch of guides and different pieces of information and different audio books that go over how to break through on cases that are stuck. Like I said, that's not to say that if you were a Scientologist and you were a mental health professional at the same time, it's against the rules for you to use another form of mental health therapy. Like in your case, as a licensed mental health counselor, if somebody tells you, I do not want to do auditing, and you provide them with a different form of therapy, you're not going to get in trouble for it. It's more that we agree as a collective that Dianetics can work for everybody and should be applied to everybody. But individual clients and patients have their own free will and choice in the matter. So if you would, that would be the best answer for that, is that it's not against the rules. If you were a licensed mental health practitioner and you gave somebody psychiatric medication, then you would be violating the rules. Unless they were having a full-blown psychotic break or some kind of medical emergency, those would be permissible in the rules of the Church of Scientology. But everything else would, under any other circumstances, that would violate it, because that's considered an abuse of mental health to give somebody a medication to make them feel nothing because you, as an auditor or a mental health professional, don't want to take the time or put in the effort to help them feel better. That's basically Scientology and Dianetics' perception of psychiatric medication, is that it's the lazy way to get out of actually helping somebody. As for meditation, there are no rules against that. The only thing is, I mean, before you start an auditing session, you're almost put into meditation anyway. And the beginning of a session and the end of a session, at least the way that I do auditing, I would almost say is almost like meditation, because I like to put people at the beginning and end of a session into a recall exercise where they are going through something pleasant. So that before we go back on the track and before we come back to present time, you have worked through something and you end feeling as good as possible. Which is not to say, even if you can get through an engram or through a chain without doing what I do, the release of charge still gives you a feeling of euphoria at the end. It's the same reason a lot of people feel really good about talking about themselves in general. If you think about that same practice applied with the reduction of charge, it's amplified to a great extent. But that would be the idea. And also that there are rules against Scientology, against any sort of spiritual practice that isn't directly from Scientology. That's difficult to answer, because if you combine Scientology processes and tech with something else, you're breaking the rules. If you do something else like meditation and then apply a piece of Scientology tech without combining the two of them together, you're fine. That's not against the rules. And so, because something's only true if it's true for you, if you feel like meditating before an auditing session helps you audit better, as long as you don't push that on somebody else, I mean, that's true because it's true for your own practice. So that would be my answer to that. There may be Scientologists who have a differing opinion to that because of their own interpretation of the materials, but I would say that with my knowledge of the rules, the ethics, all the information of Scientology, what I just said would be my answer to those questions. That's basically, if you've ever watched the movie on Scientology.tv called Psychiatry and Industry of Death, which I hate the way that they do that. They have to amplify it up to the extreme to try and get more people to watch it. I think the message is something that most of us can agree on, especially with late developments and the influence that Big Pharma has over our government and society as a whole. But the main problem that the Church of Scientology has against the mental health industry and why it makes up so much of the Scientologist code is the psychiatric and medications and different forms of psychoactive therapy. Like electroshock therapy is an example that I also am glad that I just recalled that. I did not know this. I'm obviously the Church of Scientology is very, very against electroshock therapy. In fact, if you've ever had it, you cannot join staff or cannot join the Sea Org without explicit permission. Because electroshock therapy can so seriously damage your memory, especially if it's misapplied, that you can't do auditing. You can for some things, but you'll never be able to get to basic because electroshock therapy is designed to prevent, like, it's designed to break apart things in your mind like that. Now, most of us, if you're like me, think that electroshock therapy is either something that they only did, 60 years ago, or it's something you only hear about in the terms of conversion therapy for the
Well,
queers.
I was gonna say, I believe Mike Pence was in favor of
Yeah.
that.
And so I did not know that electroshock therapy is not only still extremely common in the United States, but it's actually mandated by the Canadian government for certain mental health things. Like their guidelines explicitly tell you to try and use it as a first resort.
Well, they also have the MAID program.
Well, I don't think I know what that is.
It's it's eugenics. It's
Oh, right. The right
medically
to die.
well, yeah,
Yeah.
medically assisted in dying or
Yeah, okay.
some shit like that.
That's right.
But the people that they're like qualifying for it, like if you have um like ADHD and stuff,
Yeah.
they're looking to have those people qualify for that.
Yeah. God. Yeah. That's gonna be an interesting debate to see how that shakes down. Um, so I wanted to read you this about electroshock therapy. Because I actually got this from the United States' federal government guidelines about this, and it also says the same thing, ripped straight from it on Wikipedia if you want to read it for yourself.
Oh boy.
So this is insane to me that this is the way that this is used. So electroconducive therapy is used where possible with informed consent. I mean, already that's a red flag and a half. Where possible. In treatment resistant major depressive disorder, bipolar depression, treatment resistant catatonia, prolonged or severe mania, and in conditions where, in quotes, there is a need for rapid definitive response because of the severity of a psychiatric or medical condition. And I just want to say where it says treatment resistant, they mean medication. No actual therapy. They mean treatment as in they're stuffing you full of drugs and it's not numbing you enough to make you not feel bad anymore. And so um severity of a psychiatric or medical condition of suicidality, psychosis, stupor, retardation, depressive delusions or hallucination, or life threatening physical exhaustion. It has also been used to treat autism in adults with intellectual disability,
Oh boy.
yet findings from systematic reviews so far find this an unestablished intervention. I mean, I've been trying to clean up the language a little more as our audience continues to grow, but holy fucking shit. That is the number of things that they still use electroshock therapy for in the United States alone. I mean, that is mind boggling to me that if you are threatening to commit suicide, one of their first go to things is to shock you into not killing yourself. That's insane. But I won't go into that too much because we're gonna when we have that mental health specialist of our own come on the show for an interview, we're gonna talk about things kind of like that. And I certainly don't think by any means that every member of the mental health professional is a bad person. It's just like I feel like my feelings with the police or with different people of different groups in general is that I can't remember the names of off the top of my head, but I'm sure there are many. Is that like Southern evangelicals, for example. That would be a good example. That while I think that some people truly are in those groups trying to make the best of a bad situation, the overwhelming number of people are spoiling it for everybody else. And I say that, and maybe I have a personal prejudice because I was locked up in a nut house when I was a kid. I apologize if that word offends anybody, but you have to, if you can't make a joke about something, then it will tear you apart from the inside. To the point that, and it was just because they thought that I was trying to commit suicide. And this was in the 4th grade that they came and got me and locked me up at North Idaho Behavioral Institute. I mean, that should give you an idea. They didn't give a shit about what was actually going on. There was a large period of child abuse that was happening. Did they want to know about that? No. Did they want to know about my own father's suicide that may have been affecting it? No. Did they want to know anything about it? No. They immediately, they called me into the counselor's office, and within 10 minutes they were putting me into the car and taking me to North Idaho Behavioral Health. And if my parents didn't consent to it, they were going to make it happen. So there are many other examples of it, like substance abuse counselors. Basically court-ordered business right there. They don't care about your actual problem. Most of them don't care about your actual problems with addiction or substance abuse. The court orders you to get this evaluation and comply with all recommendations. So it's basically the perfect microcosm of the entire problem in that entire field, is that you are ordered to go there. They tell you make up whatever they can think of to get the most money out of you or their grants. And then you are required by law to pay them to do those things. I mean, that to me is the perfect microcosm of the problems of the industry as a whole. And so what I just told you is I'm certainly not the only one with these kind of experiences by any means, but the prevalence is what has created, and even for the past 74 years, really illustrates why, in Scientology's case in particular, they are vehemently against the industry, or cleaning up the industry, I should say. Not against the industry, but to stop the abusive practices that go on inside of it. And so I feel like those kinds of things really sum up that problem. The last thing I wanted to talk about today, too, is that today is the 74th anniversary of Dianetics. It's been 74 years to the day since the book was released. And and I just wanted to say that I wanted to take a minute, if you are new to the show or want to know, and aren't familiar with why I do this, I just wanted to reiterate for some of you that the reason that I know so much about Dianetics, even more significantly more so than I know about Scientology as a study, or as a subject, I mean, is because I personally credit Dianetics and the auditing that I received with basically saving my life, because I would have probably back when I very first got the book, if you listen to one of our earlier episodes about why we were gone, I mean, that book genuinely made a major impact on my life and helped me be able to sleep at night. And that process of auditing, and because it's true for me, that I know it's true because it's true for me. I know it works because it worked for me. And whether that's a placebo effect or not, like we've discussed before, it doesn't really matter. Everything's a placebo effect. Your mind you can decide if something works or not for yourself, even on a subconscious level that you may not realize. That's one of the things that makes somebody a suppressive person, is them constantly negging you into thinking you can't get better, you can't do this, you can't do that, there's no point in even trying. I know plenty of people like that. One of my closest friends is like the biggest suppressive person I think I know, and it's one of the reasons I keep trying to cut them out of my life. They constantly do that kind of bullshit. And that's what we talked about with the tone scale of being able to raise the people around you, either raising you up or pulling you down. And so, because it's the 74th anniversary of Dianetics, I just wanted to take a moment before the end of this episode to point out that some people have still been talking on the internet about why they think that I do this or I'm trying to sell people on this because I have any kind of financial incentive. If anything, I have to pay the podcasting company to be able to put this on things. So
I did not know. Wait, we have to pay people?
I have a recurring subscription to the podcast company for them to distribute it to all those websites.
All right, well, that's news to me.
So there is no financial incentive. The reason that I do this, and the reason I wanted to take a minute to talk about this, is that I do all of this because I genuinely believe that it can help people, because it genuinely helped me. And so and I am get a little apprehensive and a little pissed off when I hear people lie about it and completely distort what I know to be real. I mean, I'm not going to say that all of them are lying about every single thing about some of the things that might go on inside the church.
Well, you know how people do.
Yeah. I mean, but there are plenty of things that I hear people talk about, former Scientologists or critics of the church talk about, that I know to be lies, that are easily provable to be lies. So that pretty much brings us to the end of our episode today. It's a bit shorter than usual, especially the last two, which have almost broken an hour each. But on Monday, when we get the e-meter, I cannot wait. By Thursday, I should have it up and running and can kind of talk to you about it, explain how it all works, and at some point still gonna have somebody come here and let you for those of you who don't know what it sounds like or know how it works, to be able to basically experience in your own way an auditing session. So and hopefully a metered auditing session. I'll be able to I would really like to do that and have that be our first video on YouTube, where I can kind of show you on camera like what a floating needle is, for example.
The fuck?
So so that way you can see what the whole process looks like. Was there anything else you could think of?
No, not really. Just, world peace, read stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you guys so much for listening this week. We will be back next Thursday, and have a good weekend.